We are live and we're recording.
Awesome,
So,
awesome.
All right, I'll start it. So, good morning, everybody. This is kind of an impromptu interview. We have Jim Mee. He's actually the founder of Rat Race, a company in the UK. He'll explain all about it, but he does super cool adventure races, adventure experiences, journeys all over the world. So good to have you here, Jim. I guess I'll introduce it by telling the people a little bit how we've met and how some of our audience knows that I love doing adventure type stuff and endurance type stuff. And one day I've followed you because you actually put together I think it's the largest OCR event in the world, right?
It's the biggest assault course in the world. That's
it's
right. 20 miles long, 200 obstacles.
Yeah, so 20-mile long, 200 obstacle course called Rat Race Dirty Weekend. And one of the highlights of it is he puts together the longest monkey bar in the world. And I've always wanted to go to the UK just for this event, but then I started seeing these super cool videos about Rat Race bucket list, which as its name implies, it's literally bucket list stuff, and the biggest one that was drawn to me was the Mongol 100, because I was in the Spartan Gogi and I was in Mongolia, and beautiful country. And one day, Rat Race, I don't think it was your personal account, it was just Rat Race, and you were saying we're looking for test pilots to try some of these events in the future. So I jumped on that, send a message, and signed an NDA with you, and got this entire list of crazy cool events, that you're thinking in the future to put together. So that's how we got to meet, and we're talking, and now we're having a meeting here. I'm supposed to be doing something, but it's great, man. It's great to have you. I mean, I've always been impressed with the way you've put together your events and the marketing you do around them and stuff like that. My brother was just saying about the super cool videos you have on your site about your events. So thanks for being here, man. Thanks for taking the time to talking to us. And yeah, man, tell us a little bit about yourself, about how Rat Race began.
Well, I set the company up about 15 years ago, which sounds like a long time now that I say it. And I guess with a lot of entrepreneurs, what you set out doing isn't necessarily what you end up doing 15 years down the line. And we've always been into adventure sports events, but our initial events are very different to what they are now. And that kind of movement within the marketplace, belies the journey that we've been on, where we've started giving people adventures close to home in the UK. And as we've evolved throughout the years, those adventures have become more global, more worldwide, to the point now where, as you point out there, we're running events all over the world, such as the Rat Race bucket list, Mongolia, Namibia, etc. And it's all about, taking ordinary folk and just giving them extraordinary adventures, making stuff tough, but making it accessible. And really sort of delivering a kind of sense of journey as well with these types of events. And we find that people love them. We're in business to see people succeed in their challenge endeavors, and they really love it, and it is fantastic for us to see them get so much out of these events.
Very cool. And you're actually
why Rat Race? I mean, I think it's a super catchy name myself, but what's the story behind it?
Well, the first ever event that we did was called the Rat Race Urban Adventure, and it was actually it's ironic. The whole name is ironic because it was all about bringing adventure sports out of the wilderness and putting them on the streets of the city, almost like a counter rat race, if you like. Sort of a push against the rat race of day-to-day existence. So sort of bringing adventure into the places that that we live and work. And that's how the event went together. Our first ever event was the Rat Race Urban Adventure, and it stuck. So everything ever since has been Rat Race, been ratified.
And you're here because your company's running an event here in Miami, right?
That's right. Yeah, there's an event taking place this weekend, and it's called City to Sea. So it starts here in Miami, Key Biscayne, and it goes down the coast via the Florida Keys, the entire length of the Florida Keys, 33 miles of kayaking, and then 100 miles of road biking, 13 miles of running to finish at Key West at the westernmost point of the continental United States. And that in itself is a journey. You're coming from here, this massive metropolis, to literally the end of America.
Yeah, that's a beautiful ride, man. I mean, people that I guess are old like us, they remember True Lies.
Yes,
you never forget the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. That you see those giant bridges. Like I think it's still one of the longest bridges in the world. I mean, it's beautiful, and that's what people remember. And everybody that kind of tells me, how it is the trip to the Keys, and I just tell them, man, have you seen True Lies? And that's really what it describes, the whole and kayaking in the side of that. It's gotta be awesome.
And it's just a different side of this part of the country. I mean, a lot of people are out there in motorboats, jet skis. You get at water level with the kayaks, and you get the sort of the serenity of the water. You get the wildlife. It's a very different experience. And those northern keys particularly, quite remote. It's good. It's an adventure.
How many people are doing this thing this weekend?
Well, this is a small one. So this is the second event that we've done in the United States. So we've capped it at 20 people.
Okay.
So very exclusive. And the reason that we do that is that we want to make sure people have a very good experience first time around, and that we can make sure we deliver in spades.
Yeah.
So small, exclusive, and a very nice journey.
And one of the things that struck me, because I'm into this, I see a lot of companies trying to do what you're doing, and one thing that impressed me about you is that whole test pilot program, because I don't think anybody else does that particular part of things. They kind of plan events, they kind of go themselves, I guess, but you have straight people that are willing to try out an event before you actually sell the event. So you go try it, they do it, they give you feedback, I'm sure, and then you collect video, and that's how you market it as well. So that's a cool initiative. So tell us how did it evolve from an OCR, like straight up an obstacle course race, or urban adventure to that you started it into events all over the world?
I think that's a lot about the market that we're in, and participation sports have grown. They've grown massively over the last 15 years. The first event that we ever did had 300 people in it, and now you regularly find OCRs with 10, 15,000 people in them, and that's the size of the market that we're dealing with. But in any market that's grown, there's a lot of evolution. People don't want to be doing the same thing every weekend. They don't want to be doing the same challenges. So for us, we've got to keep nimble in that market. An OCR, it was huge for a while, and there are still some brilliant players, some big players in OCR. But a lot of people have moved on. They've done OCRs. They may do 1 or 2 a year now, whereas they may have been doing 20 a year a couple of years ago. They want to find bigger challenges. So for us, it's always about just keeping ahead in the marketplace and not necessarily pushing the envelope sort of with the extreme tag. It's just about keeping challenges rounded. What people want to do to develop themselves. So we find ourselves, pushing out into areas we've not been to. The multi-day stuff. People really enjoying just going to places and spending a lot of time in them. So it's an evolution really within the market.
Yeah, cool.
Jim, tell us a little bit about. I mean, I'm sure there's been people that go to your race and they have just a surreal experience in transformation, right? Because I myself, when I first started doing obstacle races, it was a special moment when I finished that first race. And yours are not only a race, but an adventure. So tell us about, maybe a story of one of the people that showed up and afterwards, how did they come out after doing the race?
Yeah, I mean, we see that all the time. We have people that sign up for literally every single one of our events, and they come along and they do everything. And I think we were talking about before. It's a bit of a cliche, but these types of events do change people. They have a particular outlook when they go in, and perhaps they come to the event to change their outlook, or perhaps it just happens while they're at the event. But outlooks do change, and it kind of some of these journeys really do affect people very deeply. and it's nice to see. It really is nice to see. I'm trying to rack my brains to think of your key case study there, but there's a good few.
Well, it gives you perspective, like kind of like we were talking, I myself, I'm an example of that, how it transforms you and it gives you perspective, nowadays, we were talking that one of the things that entrepreneurs have is that drive of actually doing stuff, or just not thinking about it or not complaining about we were talking about Brexit in your case in the UK versus here, about whatever the situation with the government, and in Ecuador the same, and this type of events give you a great perspective, because when you're freezing in Mongolia, in the middle crossing a lake, your computer breaking down for a day tends to not be as bad as and we were in coffee shop, and I was mentioning, I mean, I've seen it, people losing it because they're milking their lattes and it's soy and not regular, and things like that. And when you tend to be in an adventure for days at a time, and you're thankful to having food or water, and actually being warm at night,
That's right.
rather than just complaining about things.
Right. It really does shift your perspective.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Did you start a rat race by yourself?
I did, yeah. I have a business partner now. There's two of us that own the business, and there's three directors in the business. And yeah, right at the beginning, it was me. And I think, sort of fairly shortly thereafter, I realised that I probably needed a bit of help to run this thing. And sort of working as a team is a big part of running any business. I think you've got to collaborate. You've got to work with other people. If you work with no one, you don't have a business. So actually, understanding that there's other people out there that can help you. And then that can become part of that team is a key understanding, I think, of being in business.
Oh yeah. You're getting the right team, and it's critical.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
That is awesome, Jim. Listen, guys, I had another meeting scheduled at this time, so I'm super sorry that I can't stay with you guys. But congratulations, because I think you have something amazing going on. 15-year in business. I'm sure you've seen a lot of happy people after the races, and people overcome their struggles, not only physically, but mentally. I think some of these experiences really change folks for the better, and they help them realize that the outlook of life is about, if I have an obstacle in front of me, I only have two choices, right? It's either overcome it or quit. And when you don't have the option of quitting, because you're in the middle of nowhere and you have to help yourself survive basically and get over it, then it becomes easier even in daily life not to quit on things and to just overcome things, because I think in our modern society, we just have too many options to quit personally, right? It's too
wise words. Yeah.
Way too many. Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. Instead, you're bringing them an experience really that, number one, they will remember forever. And number two, that challenges them just enough to say, oh man, I'm not going to quit. I actually cannot quit, because otherwise I'm stranded in the middle of nowhere here. So I might as well buck up and continue, right? So that's awesome.
Well, you have not much of a choice.
Yeah,
once you're there.
That's it. And when you don't have a choice, you tend to, dig deep and keep going. That's really it.
Yeah, the journey continues.
That's true.
A pleasure to meet you. I hope I get a chance soon to be in one of your races. We'll make a plan in the next year to hopefully do it in the UK. That'll be an awesome experience to travel over there and be in one of your events. So I thank you for being flexible and joining us today. Ricardo's in charge now, so I'll leave him chatting with you. And it was a pleasure to talk to you for a few minutes.
Great stuff.
Take care, guys.
Yeah, man. So, just I won't take a lot more of your time, but just tell us a couple of the adventures you have. You're doing more in this side of the world now, things, and some of our audience, especially people I hang out with, tend to be people that like this type of adventures. So tell us a couple of the adventures you have coming up, in the next year.
Well, this is the second event that we've, albeit it's a small one, second event that we'll have done in the US this year. And we really want to hopefully get under the skin of the US market a little bit more. We did one earlier in the year up in New York State. It was a fantastic journey down the Hudson River. The world's a big place, but it's getting easy to get around the place, and therefore for us, it's allowing us to sort of use this big blank canvas to draw our adventures on. Is becoming more accessible. So hopefully we'll see more in the US. Watch this space. We're always developing more stuff.
Do you have anything coming up in Latin America?
TBC. Watch this space.
Which one is that one?
Well, perhaps you have some ideas.
It's you, because you did the Panama event, right? The Panama was recently.
No, so we have an event coming up in Panama, in Central America, in March.
Okay.
So that event that went on sale a couple of years ago. It's actually been sold out for quite a while. It's been hugely popular. But we're yet to run the first edition, so that will be in March. So that will be our first event in Latin America.
And that's the Panama going. Is it from the Pacific to the Atlantic, or the Atlantic to the Pacific?
Yeah, Pacific to the Atlantic. Yeah.
Okay. And it's self-supported, no?
It's a little bit self-supported. It's a bit of a mix. So we've got a road running stage which is supported. Then there's a very significant jungle trekking stage which is self-supported. Okay. And then a pack rafting stage where we're using a jungle river.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of a mix, self-supported, supported. Yeah.
Oh,
a hell of a journey. A hell of a journey.
Very cool. And what about what is your favorite? I mean, you've done a lot of stuff. And what is your favorite event that you run from the bucket list?
I think Mongolia is hard to beat. Like, it's a place that is so different from anywhere else on earth. The culture there is genuinely very different from anything I've ever seen. Yeah. Nomadic culture, sort of spanning back, 1,000 years. And it's empty, it's entirely devoid of, I think it's the first or the second least densely populated place on earth. And that in itself gives it a real kind of wilderness quality, And we're there in the dead of winter, and it's just quiet, it's still, there's nothing around, everything's hibernating, the odd howl of wolves. It's a very ethereal place, so for me, that's a highlight.
Yeah, I remember when I was there, man, it was like, the big thing is the yurt, like you're saying, the nomadic culture. I mean, you're driving for hours and hours outside of the city, and there's nothing, and all of a sudden you see a little yurt with a little DirecTV antenna. And it's in the middle of nowhere, and there's nothing else.
You've got a few trappings of modern life, but then there's this almost kind of medieval culture going on. Yeah.
And even in Ulaanbaatar, the big city, I remember one of the things that struck me as super different was that you see the buildings, the Russians, they make the nice apartment buildings, and most of them were empty. And you see the actual Mongolians living in yurts in the parking lots.
That's right.
Like straight up in parking lots, and they're not even going to occupy the building. They're just used to it.
Yeah, that's their culture. Their culture. It's very authentic.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So, to finish up, man, and we ask this to all the entrepreneurs, is what has been your biggest obstacle or biggest challenge as an entrepreneur in your 15-year journey that it comes to mind to you?
There's been a few. I think it's pretty hard to quantify one particular one. That journey, as we were talking about before, is a massive roller coaster. You're up, you're down, you're left, you're right. But I think in the very, very early days, I kind of came in. You come into this with what would you call it? The ignorance and the arrogance of youth, which are, perhaps useful in equal measure, but you wise up pretty quick, when you start your own business. And once your back's against the wall and you've kind of, spent your last cash and you have to really work it out for yourself, that's a leveler. And it's all on you. Yeah. And I think, I learned very early in the process, as I said before, you can't necessarily do it all on your own. You need good people around you. You have to do it as a team. And you have to be a regular bloke. You have to be reasonable. You have to deal with people reasonably. And just being yourself, approaching stuff honestly, doing deals, in an ethical way, that sort of thing. I think it's very important.
Yeah. You either win or you learn.
That's right. It's a cliche, but
and we've learned a lot as entrepreneurs, for sure. And the last thing, man, is what advice would you give to somebody that wants to entrepreneur in their passion? Because I think if it's not your passion, it doesn't work.
You've got to be all in. You have to be all in. You've got to back yourself to the hilt. And even when the chips are down and you really don't think it's possible, you've got to keep going.
Yeah.
As Winston Churchill once said, you know, if you're going through hell, keep going. And there'll be some times like that, you know, in an entrepreneur's journey.
Yeah.
So that's my advice. You know, you've got to be all in. But if you are all in, it's the most rewarding journey on earth.
Awesome, man. Oh, perfect, dude. Hey, thank you for taking the time there. Awesome, man. It was great to meet you. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll be bringing you some more good interviews with great entrepreneurs like Jim. All right, guys. Have a good afternoon.